Okay. Okay, it's back up. Okay. Um,
Hey, Becky.
Hi. Yeah. I think you're sneaking something by us there. Okay. Bye. All right, I think we've got it. Garrett, if you want to make somebody else the co-host,
Do I have that power? Let's see.
and now that you're host, you should.
Let me see here. Am I host? I am host. Oh, wow. Okay, let's see here.
Powerful.
I will try not to let it go to my head here. Kat, I think you should now be co-host.
Yes, I am.
All right.
Okay, and I'll keep my hands away from the keyboard. Thanks a lot, Becky. Sorry about that.
No problem. Good night. Thanks.
Good night.
Bye, Becky.
I just got to figure out how to leave. Bye.
Noreen, you're muted.
Just so you know, I just received an email that has another potential agenda item on it that I guess we would take under new business. It's from Lake Wyola Association.
Oh, okay. Let's get to that before we quit. So we were in I guess we just had finished approving the minutes, right? And
Yes.
we've got some things. It's basically the Noreen show tonight. Well, let's find out what Chris Footed's got in mind. Chris, would you unmute yourself and tell us why you're here?
No, I'm just watching. I'm interested in the Wendell 56 Wendell Road.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that right now. As background on that, Chris, you probably know that the Board of Health put a condemnation order on that property, and that condemnation order has expired. And what we're working with the owner, and basically what we are doing is following the progress of the whole demolition process, which has been made extremely complicated by a number of factors. And each month we review the progress and we vote to defer action until the next month. So, the progress between last month and this month has been fairly minimal. Some stuff is getting ready to be carted away. Negotiations with the insurer and the demolition company are still ongoing. The electric company still has not restored power, which is needed for required by the demolition expert. I'm not exactly sure how that works. So we have the owner's belief and reasonable assurance that it's going to be down by spring, but that's as much as we know.
All right. I'll be watching.
So will we. Thanks for coming in, Chris.
All right. Thank you.
So Board of Health, let's can we have a motion to defer action on our what's the word I want? What did we do? I'm having a brain fog here.
Is this on 56 Wendell still?
Yes, right, on our condemnation order. I would like to hear a motion to defer taking any action on our expired condemnation order.
So the order itself is expired.
Yes, it was supposed to be down by a certain time, and which is really pretty long ago. But I remind you that there aren't any good options beyond simply deferring action. Right? We were advised to have the place put into receivership or something, and that's something that we really didn't want to do.
Well, in Kat, I'll just remind the board that we have been deferring action for some time now. And we have had reports from the parties involved as to what the updates are, and we have been accepting those reports all along. And given that, I would make a motion that we go ahead and defer taking any action for another month until we hear more from Greg.
Do I hear a second?
Seconded.
All in favor? Noreen?
Well, I wonder if there's any discussion as.
Oh, I'm
as-
sorry, I
as
forgot about
Garrett had a
discussion.
question, so.
Yeah, I was just trying to understand. So if our order is no longer in place, what
How do
exactly,
we defer it?
right? Are we?
Well, what we're deferring is taking any action against the homeowner for failing to meet our deadline.
Yeah, I guess I don't have concern then.
Other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Noreen?
Yes,
Garrett?
Yes.
Wim?
Yes.
Kat? Yes. Okay. Okay, I'm getting tired of it too, but you know, what can you do? And so now it's the Noreen show.
oh, well,
You've got a lot of things to tell us.
I do have a lot of things to tell us, and I guess if any of my word salad in terms of acronyms get in the way, will you stop me and let me know?
Yeah.
But just I want to talk to you about what's going on with the Public Health Excellence Grant, otherwise now known as the Valley Health Collaboration. And just a reminder that we signed a memorandum of agreement to enter into discussions and begin working with the towns of Deerfield, Greenfield, Leverett, Montague, Shutesbury, and Sunderland. When we signed, our select board signed that memorandum for us on last October. And the total amount of money that we have coming into Greenfield right now for this grant is about $300,000. It's from the state, and the monies are intended to grow public health services throughout these new public health excellence grants areas. So given that, we're taking our next sort of formal step as a group, which is to sign an intermunicipal agreement with these 6 towns. The agreement then goes to the state, to DPH, to the Office of Local and Regional Health. And we then become a formal group in the eyes of all of the towns and the state. So tonight, and I believe Kat has circulated a draft of that memorandum, intermunicipal agreement to everyone so they could review it and see if they had any questions. It's about a 10-page document. And I'm happy to do the best I can to answer any questions about any sections of it. This is a boilerplate type document that was put together by the Public Health Association for the state of Massachusetts on behalf of these towns. So everybody will be using very similar kind of language. The other thing I want to assure the board is that our town council, the next thing, if we decide we want to release it, we would release it so that it can be reviewed by our town council and Becky, and they can make some decisions as to how we might want to present this information. to the select board. And it's my understanding that our town council, who is Donna Nichols, might in fact have already seen these, because we believe that she's town council to some of the other towns in the collaborative. So with that, I'll see if anyone has any questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. And then I would ask at the end that the board make a motion to vote to approve that we forward this intermunicipal agreement to Becky and to Donna for their review, and to get back to us and see what steps the town wants to take next. In terms of signing it, the ultimate goal would be for the chair of the Board of Health and the chair of the select board to sign this agreement and get it back to Greenfield, who will then forward it to the state.
Noreen, would we want to take a vote tonight to request that the select board, to recommend that the select board sign this intermunicipal agreement?
That would be absolutely fabulous if the board feels comfortable doing that.
And it seems to me that there's layers of agreements, that we've already signed one thing for this, and that this is another one, and that there may be yet another one to come. Am I right?
I don't know. I don't think there's another one to come, Kat. I think this is it. I think the first one was just, saying that we were beginning to work together, giving the state notice that we were applying for these funds, that we'd put together a grant application, and we were working as a team of 6 towns. And now this is more of a, I don't know, they call it an agreement, but it's almost a little bit more about a contract. And if you've noticed, there's more formal language that informs us, being the town, if we want to withdraw from this agreement or this, I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, contract, what we would need to do it, who gets notice, how it happens, what it takes to, become a member and withdraw.
What are the terms of withdrawal?
Oh boy, as I recall, and I did not bring it up in front of me, it's that we must give the collaborative a 3-month notice, and we must have the agreement of both the select board and the Board of Health that we want to withdraw from the agreement.
Garrett, you have a question, or can I go ahead?
You can go ahead. My observation is that the benefits outweigh any detriment to the town, for participation.
Yeah, I would say from reading the documents that I would agree with that. I just wonder, 300,000 doesn't seem like a lot to fund all that the full-time positions. There will be probably 3.5 full-time, something like that.
Yeah, that's a good point, Wim. Good catch. This is the beginning year of the grant, and so the 300,000 we got, we were awarded in about November. So that money hopefully will be spent by the end of June, and we're preparing a budget now for the upcoming fiscal year. And there's a possibility of receipt of additional funding. And again, this is a concept that the state has gotten behind, and there are other public health excellent grant entities throughout the states that are further ahead of us and have been engaging in this process for a longer period of time. So they've probably been able to grow their grant, Wim. And one of the things we're talking about as a collaborative, for example, is being able to hire, say, a social worker to help us do some of this work. And that will tie in when I talk later about 2 other concepts for pooling monies and growing opportunities that we've been talking about in the collaborative. So we would be applying for more funding, for example, to fund a social worker or part-time social worker, and some epidemiological consultation as examples of other ways we might like to grow.
And if just to be argumentative, what if there were a shortfall in funding? would that contract, because I didn't see language to this effect, would it fall then on the member towns to make up the shortfall through their general budget?
I think there was some language, as I recall, it did say that the towns would not be responsible, but my guess is the other side of that answer, Wim, is that because I'm now our representative, each town has an equal vote, that it's my job and Garrett's job as my backup to make sure that we spend as much of that 300,000 or whatever we're allocated as possible and not to exceed it. So, I'm part of the management team that oversees how this grant is spent, and we will be getting reports on a regular basis like any board does as to how much has been spent so far during the fiscal year. And I'm sure we have to make quarterly reports to the state, for example, and I'm sure we'll be subject to audit. And the town of Greenfield is the lead entity for all of that kind of administrative work.
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah, definitely.
So am I right in assuming that most of this money is going to go for salaries, and so it will be a fixed amount? It's not like we're
Yes.
going to go out spending on particular services, a little here, a little there, and then it could mount up and result in the kind of shortfall that Wim is imagining.
Well, what the money is being spent this year on, furnishings, software, furnishings meaning desks and, computers for the staff that we're going to be hiring, software for inspectors that is consistent across all of the 6 towns that will allow us to do the reporting we're required to do in the state, and also look at it by town and look at it by our collaborative. So this year we have a lot of startup costs. We also have a program manager and clerk who, so in many ways has a similar kind of role to Kat. She writes minutes for us. She interfaces with a lot of entities and, keeps us in the loop about, what our responsibilities are with the state and that sort of thing.
So Noreen, I keep hearing about nurses, public health nurses being hired. Are they going to be hired within the fiscal year that we're in and active within this fiscal year?
Yes, two pieces to public health nurses. Let me address the part that has already taken place. I believe at our last meeting, both Arlene and I spoke to the fact that we have been assigned a public health nurse from Greenfield to provide backup to us, or actually to monitor Maven for us. So that has already been achieved, and it is happening with thanks to Greenfield for using the resources they already have in terms of public health nurses who are, part of their team and Deerfield's team to make this happen right now. The second part is we have, I think, Jen, it doesn't really matter, but I think Jen reported we have 2 or 3 applicants for public health nurse to come and work specifically under this grant, a new one. So Jen is in the process of reviewing those resumes right now. As soon as she feels she has 1 or 2 appropriate candidates, she will bring the background and expertise of those candidates to us, and we will, have some discussion and give her the okay to go ahead and hire that person.
So there's going to be one person hired?
One person hired, and again, all of the people, I think she's assigned, I think it's 3 or 4 nurses to cover the 6 towns for Maven. We got a little summary of that last time. So right now 1, yes.
I don't quite follow. What's with the 3 or 4?
There are already public health nurses that are in the budget of Greenfield and Deerfield and
I see.
Montague, for example.
I see.
And they're all parts of this collaborative. So what we are doing in building in the collaborative is an opportunity, a way to share services among towns.
So do we
So-
get to share those already hired public nurses in other towns? Because we're in an agreement with them, or do we only get to share a new public health nurse who will be brought out under the terms of the grant?
My understanding is a new public health nurse will be assigned to Leverett at Shutesbury right now because we have no public health nursing services, whereas the other towns do. Perhaps Sunderland as well. I'm not certain about that. I know Deerfield, Montague, and Greenfield have public health nursing services that they pay for out of their town budgets.
They get them from, some of those towns I know get them from FERCog. Is this different from that?
They have withdrawn from those agreements. You are correct. Deerfield, for example, used to get them from FERCog, and they have withdrawn from FERCog and have now worked out an agreement for public health nursing with Greenfield. So there are things that are in the process of changing, Kat, and that's what I want. Once we finish this discussion, I want to talk about another area where we're having this discussion about how things might evolve and change to be managed more directly through the collaborative.
I don't think I have any more questions. Fellas?
Yeah, so I think what we want to do is move to recommend that the select board approve this. Is that the direction we were talking about going with this?
It needs to be signed by both the chair of the select board or the town administrator and Kat.
So
So
do we want to first make a motion that we will approve it and that I will sign it, and then a motion that we recommend that the select board sign on also? Is that the way we should do this?
Are you
So-
asking me, Kat, or you're
I'm
the
asking
board?
whoever might have an opinion. I'm just not sure how to structure this.
Do we need Donna and Becky to take a look at it first to see if they have any questions before we approve it, or vote to approve? I don't.
We could do it this way, I think. We could vote to approve it in principle, subject to any changes that Donna, especially Donna, I'm not too concerned about Becky, but then especially anything that Donna would recommend as a change. So somebody want to make a motion for all that?
I'll make a motion that we approve for our board chair to sign the intermunicipal agreement with the Valley Health Coalition, subject to the review of our town attorney and any changes that she might suggest need to be made.
Second.
Discussion? All right, all in favor? Noreen?
Yes.
Pat, yes. Garrett?
Yes.
Wim?
yes,
Okay. All right, now we need a second motion, right? To recommend that the select board sign on to this after review by town council. In fact, I'll just move that myself. I move that we recommend that the select board sign on to this agreement after town council has reviewed it.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, let's vote. Noreen?
Yes.
Pat, yes. Garrett?
Yes.
Wim?
yes.
Okay, there we are.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now you have another thing about the opioid settlements. business, right?
Yes, I'd just like to update the board that the collaborative is also talking about the opioid settlement funds that are coming to the 6 towns. And let me get again, I think there is a proposal among the 6 towns. This money, and I am not an expert on this, so I do not have all the answers, but it is my understanding that the money for the opioid settlement comes directly to the towns. It's a formula that's been prescribed by the state. It's similar to the tobacco money settlement that came into town probably 20 or 25 years ago. Shutesbury is going to be getting about $5,000 a year for 15 years. I think the total amount, oh man, the total amount coming into the coalition, I think is going to be about $87,500.
Annually?
Excuse me?
Annually?
Yes.
Holy cow.
Yes. For example, Greenfield's going to be getting 56,000 of it. Deerfield's getting almost 11,000. The formula is driven by, and I don't know how they came up with this, but it is driven by the number of prescriptions, I guess, for opioids that were prescribed per town. Anyway, what the concept is that the money's coming to our select boards. It's probably another area where we might talk to our select board and help educate them and ourselves about how this funding is going to work. And what we are talking about doing in the collaborative is pooling our money once again so that we can have a plan for how best to spend the money among the 6 towns. We're talking about a plan that would supplement the money that goes to Tapestry and other private nonprofits that provide addiction services in Franklin County, and try to use that money to target some gap in service delivery that we would gather some data and learn about, as opposed to having, smaller bits of money come into the town, and just each town sort of spent the money kind of willy-nilly and not have a plan. We think it makes most sense, since this money is coming in to the area for a sustained period of time, to take some time to look at some data, perhaps even consult with an expert at the School of Public Health at UMass or other addictions professionals, and think about how best we can make this money do the most for the people in need in our 6 towns. So I just wanted to update the board that we're having this discussion, we're talking about it. Greenfield, the collaborative in general, has agreed that it makes sense for us to pool our monies. And I'm bringing this to the board because at some point we probably need to talk again to Becky, our select board, and see what they know about this funding. If they've had any discussions or have any plans for what they might like to do for the $5,000 that's coming into Shutesbury, or whether they like the idea of pooling our money with the other 5 towns and perhaps being able to, hire some personnel or contract with some professionals to help us really put together a targeted program of some sort. So I'm not asking for any action on this, but I just want the board to be aware of what we are discussing, and that we probably do need to bring this to the select board, or at least talk to Becky about what we're thinking about.
Well, I think that we could do with this just what we did with the collaborative. We could vote in principle on whether we agree with regionalizing these funds. And we could vote to recommend that the select board do what we say. Does that seem reasonable? Garrett's nodding, Liam's nodding. All right, so I will move that we, let me make a thing here. That we vote in principle, agreeing to pool opioid settlement money with the rest of with the collaborative for the purpose of regional, a larger scale regional response.
I'll second that.
Okay, hearing none, let's vote on that part. Noreen?
I do
no,
have
Garrett-
one thing
Garrett's
to
got a
add.
discussion.
You have one thing that is coming to mind. I wonder if we also want to loop the police chief in on
Yes,
this.
I can
absolutely.
address that. Yes, I have been, I have attempted to contact her on several occasions, Garrett, and I just got another way to contact her. So I will continue to do that. I've on both issues, both what's going on with our expenditures and what we might be working on in the collaborative for the opioid money. And I think she also may have her finger on the pulse in town as to where we might need some help with public health nursing, for example.
Yeah,
So
I
yes,
think that's great, because I imagine that in law enforcement circles, they're discussing the opioid settlement and distribution of this funding and how they might connect into it to address needs on the law enforcement side.
yes, I'm sure they need to be part of the discussion, but my understanding is, and again, I have not read all of the fine print on this in detail, but my understanding is this money is not intended for law enforcement purposes.
Not in terms of policing, but maybe
Yeah.
like around community programming and
Yeah,
Definitely. This is the kind of thing that Kristen would be very interested in and really useful in, because she has the kind of outreach and connections in town that we don't have.
but we don't have, yeah.
So,
I think there's a motion and a second on the table and we're discussing, Kat.
right, are we ready to vote on that motion to agree in principle that the opioid money should be pooled? Okay, all right, Noreen?
Yes.
Pat, yes. Garrett?
yes.
Wim?
Yes.
All right, so there we go on that. Now, the other part of that would be to recommend that the select board take action. How do we want to put this? Help me out. Basically, they have to remove them or
I think what it is, Kat, in discussion, I think what it is the funding is already going to come to the town. So
right.
somehow the town would have to vote to do it and to figure out how that money would get transferred to the collaborative, the Valley Health Collaborative.
Well, and this demonstrates the value of having this agreement. Engaging in this signing this agreement is in part what I think helps to facilitate some of that transference of funds.
The intermunicipal agreement, right. That's a good point. And I wonder if we should take this one step at a time then. And not make any recommendations to the select board before we get through the intermunicipal agreement.
Noreen, do you know what the timing is on the opioid?
No, I think we're having very preliminary discussions at the collaborative level to see if the members of the, I'll call it the board or the council of the collaborative, you know, feel confident enough in wanting to do this that they even bring it back to their boards of health. So we haven't gotten to the stages of the specifics of how this would work out, but everyone has pretty much agreed that they'd like to do this. I know Jen, for example, is talking to the, you know, the mayor about this conceptually. So there's no deadline for doing this. And I really don't know what the deadlines are or when we're going to be receiving this money. We've been getting a lot of emails about it. So actually, I think we are getting it in this fiscal year. There's money allocated for this fiscal year. So I think it has come. I think the settlement is done and it's available to be distributed.
What do you think, Noreen, should happen like right now? Should we be talking with the select board and just letting them know what's
I
up?
think perhaps Garrett and I should read through all of the fine print and what we do have a little more thoroughly, and you know, at least have a discussion with Becky about, you know, how she thinks this might go forward to the select board, or find out in general, you know, what they know about these settlement funds and how they're coming into the state and how they're being informed. Just maybe share information and education among the two groups.
I think that is probably needed, because when I mentioned it to Becky a week or more ago, she seemed to think that Shutesbury had missed its chance way back when I guess Dan Fernandez was police chief, and that we didn't sign up for something. And she didn't seem to realize that there was a settlement here that we're included in.
There must be precedent with other funds that have been allocated to towns that are earmarked for specific use, because again, the town can't just put this in the general fund. This money has to be used
Right.
for
A
some
specific
sort of
purpose.
addiction services.
Correct.
Good point. So that's a sort of another point for town council. How does it happen, and how do we track the money and make sure that it's spent in the way that it's intended?
Well, if it is pooled, if the town agrees that that's a good idea, which we all agree it is, then the collaborative is going to make sure that it's used appropriately.
Right,
So the town will
because
be out of the hands of the town.
right, but getting it out of the hands of the town may involve some kind of formal contract or
Transfer process.
yeah, documented process that we would probably need town council advice on.
Yeah, and I think the town would still be responsible for reporting how the money was used, even if it's
Right.
transferred to a collaborative and pooled for a shared purpose.
Right.
Each of the communities would still have to report.
Would that mean that the community would report on any funds that were used within or for that community, or would all 6 communities sort of report the same thing?
They'd probably end up reporting largely the same thing.
Collectively.
Yeah, I think so too.
So Noreen, how do you think we should proceed here?
Well, I think just as I said, I think I'm going to be away and not be reading things in detail, but I think if when we come back, when I come back, if Garrett and I read this in a little more detail and are prepared to at least have a conversation with Becky about it and see what she knows and see what she recommends in terms of moving forward. And I don't know if town council will know about this or if the town accountant. I don't know. I guess, Garrett, when you go to the meeting, the end of the month, if I'm not here, maybe ask other towns, who they're consulting
Yep.
about this. So, I think what I want to do is make sure our board knew what I'm talking about and with the collaborative so that we're all on the same page. And next, to take the same steps with other key leaders in town. So when the time comes to make a formal decision about, do we want to transfer this $5,000 a year to the collaborative, everybody will be informed and be prepared to make that decision or take those steps.
If there's money allocated for the fiscal year that we're in,
That's a
this
good
is going to
point.
have to happen fairly soon.
True.
I'll talk with Becky about it just informally and make sure it's at least on the radar.
The other things to let you know, people you can talk with, and I meant to give you her phone number, Garrett, are two people while I'm away. If you need more information after you talk to Becky Cat, is you can always talk to Carolyn Shores Ness, who's both Select Board and Board of Health in Deerfield, or Jen. They're both readily available, and I know you've talked with Jen before to get some advice. Jen Hoffman, that is, Director of Public Health in Greenfield. And I can give you both Carolyn's cell phone number if you want to talk to her. She knows you're backing me up, Garrett, and I think you know Carolyn or from other things. Yeah.
Garrett, are you dealing with this? Well, you've been away for weeks, so you're not dealing with anything professionally, but I wondered if this was coming up in your work life.
No, because I don't do as much in the public health excellence grant or the opioid. But I hear the rumbling, so it's familiar discussion.
You hear similar rumblings in other towns, is what you're saying. Yeah.
So I was in the middle of making a motion, but I think I didn't finish it. And I think that maybe I'll just withdraw that motion to take any action, recommending action to the select board. That maybe we'll just wait on that. Does everybody?
Sounds like we have time.
So if it's that funds are going to be appropriated and distributed within this fiscal year, then we probably need to at least do outreach to Becky to find out if there are communications coming to the town about this, so that we could express that in principle we would like to see those funds pooled with the other communities. So I can do outreach to Becky to have some of those initial conversations to find out if they're hearing anything, and if she's still under the impression that we're not getting any funds because we didn't take a particular action.
That would be great if you would talk with Becky, because I think you're better informed than I am on this.
So I'll do that, and then I guess that to the question about do we want to make a motion and approve the board's approval for taking that approach. I mean, where Noreen's going to be away and Arlene's away, maybe we do in concept or theory, this is what we would like to see happen with those funds.
I think that we did vote in principle, did we not? I wrote that we did here. We voted in principle that we would like to see the funds pooled.
Okay, all right.
And what I was starting to do another motion, as we did on the first point to recommend this to the select board. That's the question here. Do we want to?
I think to recommend to the select board, just like we did before, pending discussion with potentially town council, the town accountant, and the town administrator
And police chief.
and police chief.
Okay, so we're back to making a motion to recommend that the select board agree to pool the funds after review and discussion with the above named people from town. So I move that. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion. Okay, let's vote. Noreen,
Yes.
Pat, yes. Garrett,
Yes.
Wim.
Yes.
All right.
All right, I have a similar notion to put forward that the collaborative is already talking about. And Wim, you'll have to let me know how much you know or don't know about this. But the MAFCO group I go to helps to put together plans for emergency preparedness planning for Franklin County. And the funding for that, there's also money for that that comes from the federal government to the state to, what are we, Garrett, Region 1? I think we're Region 1 in Western Massachusetts. And that funding for Franklin County WIM is about $120,000. And unfortunately, that money is administered currently through FERCog. And unfortunately, in the opinion of some of us who are on the board that oversees this money and this emergency management planning, we haven't met or done much during this fiscal year. So there's some feeling that this money isn't being spent as effectively as it might. So given that as background, and I'll let you ask questions in a minute, there's also some movement among the collaborative 6 towns to try and get that FEP money for public health emergency preparedness planning also pooled in the collaborative. And the notion there is, again, it's probably, I'm just guessing, because it's formula driven again, and the towns in our collaborative are the largest populated towns in Franklin County. It's probably going to be in the range of $65,000 to $75,000 a year, which we could potentially use to hire a planning consultant for emergency preparedness planning, which is what Garrett does for other towns in Massachusetts. And there's another concept that in another region, Hampshire County, for example, what that money does is it funds nursing services for a mobile van that goes around to towns and provides flu and COVID clinics, which is one of the things that we have done in the past to practice emergency preparedness in town. So, and Greenfield is willing to staff that van. The towns have been hampered in recent years because we don't have the nursing expertise to handle, I don't need to tell you this, to handle the vaccines, but Greenfield does. So one of the ideas, again, is to pool these monies and use it to do our own planning and have our own emergency preparedness program for the 6 towns. So again, I want to inform the board that we're having this kind of conversation. It's a big change in sort of strategy and who manages these monies and how they're used from what we have done in the past.
So Noreen, are you saying that we would have to choose between having a planner, which I know FERCog not only doesn't have one, but isn't looking for one, as I recall, between that and having this mobile unit?
No, I'm saying that's just sort of the conceptual plan. What we would want to do is withdraw from FERCog and have those monies for emergency preparedness planning, again, for our 6 towns directed to the collaborative. And I'm saying that funding, I'm thinking, is going to be between $65,000 and $75,000. We get about $120,000 a year. And so Phoebe's 10 towns or whatever she has would get about, I know I'm getting really technical here, would get about, let's say, $45,000 a year, and the rest would probably go to the collaborative. So with that money, we think we could both get the mobile van up and running. The van exists. We already have the physical van, and also perhaps hire a part-time planner to meet the other objectives of what would be required to participate in the FEP grant. And Garrett can probably speak more to how realistic this notion is from his.
Yeah, it seems realistic to me. I mean, the funding is going to go to the designated fiscal agent for Region 1, which is for COG, and then the negotiations around how they further distribute those funds is going to have to be between FERCog and the other parties, I would assume. So the hurdle is that piece, I think.
So FERCog could be reluctant to give that up.
You know it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how the relationship exists right now between FERCog and MAFCO in terms of how they determine the allocation to MAFCO, and they do the hiring for the planner. So would it be that they distribute the funds to Greenfield to hire the planner, or would they look to retain the responsibility to hire the planner? Those are all things that I guess would have to be worked out.
Yeah, all I do know, Garrett, is that we do approve all of the budgets every year. We do approve, I think it's called a consensus signature that goes to the state, where we agree that we want to participate in the FEP program planning and we want to accept the $120,000. The board does all of that every year. And what we've been, again, Carolyn Shores-Ness and I have begun having some discussions. We're co-chairs of this board, Wim. So we have been discussing with board members the fact that there might be a protest vote this year in which we might not agree with the consensus to, have that funding, go to FERCog. So yes, it will probably cause some sort of potential row. I don't really know. I don't know the specifics of how that would work, but.
Noreen, when you say this board and we, are you talking about MAFCO?
Yes, I am. The MAFCO board, yes.
So this fiscal year, it sounds like there is unspent money though.
Correct. Yes, I would say yes, but unfortunately, Wim, going back to my first discussion, we have not met. Traditionally, we met every month or at least every other month. We have bylaws. We're required to meet a certain number of times a year. We have not. Carolyn and I haven't officially been voted in as co-chairs this year. It's I don't know what's going on. It's a very strange year, and
Who is supposed to be convening these meetings? Would have thought it would be you and Carolyn.
Well, yes, but staff, is supposed to be coordinating with us to do that, it's their responsibility to contact all of the people, get together the minutes.
Establish the agenda.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
So
and
basically, we've
Greg
been
Lewis.
we've kind of been waiting on hold, wondering what's going to unfold, and nothing has. So we're about at the stage where, we want to tell some other entities or inform other people what's going on. We're not quite sure exactly how to go about it, except they're required to get this consensus vote before the 17th of March. And they have not even scheduled a meeting yet. So, and then, like us, they have to give it's a public meeting. They have to give a certain notice. They have to inform the board what they're doing.
It might, and I don't know the first thing about this, but if there's a deadline that is imminent and they will, after the 17th, be in violation of their charter, that may argue on behalf of what the collaborative wants to do. I mean, there would be evidence that they are not able to meet their requirement, their statutory requirement.
Exactly, Wim, thank you. And that's why Carolyn and I have not taken any action other than to talk among ourselves and some of our board members to inform them.
That sounds like a smart thing to do, yeah.
Thank you. So I just wanted to inform the board again and let them know that the collaborative is talking about taking this on as an additional role. Greenfield, again, has had some discussions. We discuss this often in conjunction with our fire chief, and the fire chief in Greenfield has been brought into this and thinks it's a good idea. So discussions are taking place on the town levels about the possibility of moving the FEP dollars, to the collaborative as well, and working together with that money.
One of the reasons I think it makes a lot of sense is that the purpose of the collaborative through the Public Health Excellence Grant is really to demonstrate the ability to build out public health capabilities and capacity across multiple jurisdictions. And a lot of the capacity and capability that you're talking about, whether it's public health nursing, social work, all of that factors into emergency preparedness at some level. And, to integrate the emergency preparedness component to that, it makes sense to me.
And in your professional experience, there is precedent for this in other regions. They've been folded.
I think that's what we'll see happen in other regions as well, is that this separate preparedness funding stream from CDC out to these fiscal agents, whether it's for COG or in the eastern part of the state, Cambridge Health Alliance, that it may make sense to tap into some of these regional collaboratives to support the work that they're doing and integrate emergency preparedness.
Because they're new, because these public health excellence collaboratives are new, we don't have a lot of precedent about what they're doing. They're being formed now.
All right. Well, thanks. That's a lot of information.
There's a lot going on, Wim. Thanks for listening to all the acronyms and all the factors involved. Appreciate it.
I really like the idea of moving the preparedness planning away from FERCOG and into the collaborative, because FERCOG they have not been doing a good job. They haven't been doing a job at all.
Right.
But I'm worried about how it can be done.
Yes,
Okay.
I would agree. I don't really know, but yes.
That's
I
another
would
thing.
think it would get FERCog's attention if their biggest towns in this FEP group, MAFCO, wanted to leave. If Greenfield, Deerfield, and Montague, the three biggest, towns population-wise, want to leave, I would think it would get their attention. And there would at least be some discussion. But, I don't really know. So the
So-
other thing, since this meeting may be scheduled, I could get a notice at any minute that there might be a meeting scheduled by FERCog for MAFCO to meet to make this consensus decision. I was planning on sending an email to Carolyn to let her know what my position was as a member of that board and not supporting that consensus decision on behalf of, that we, might want to move forward with a different concept.
Do you need a vote from the Board of Health for that, or are you just
I
acting-
don't think I do. I think since I am the person who represents us, I don't think so, but I want everybody to know what I'm doing on our behalf.
So your intention is that if a vote is called for this consensus vote, is to refuse.
Correct. And
And-
what I'm saying is it may happen while I'm away and we don't have an alternative and I am the representative on the group to write a letter to Carolyn that she would read into the record at that meeting, knowing that, what my vote would be.
Do the MAFCO, do you guys, are there bylaws that basically allow you to give proxy?
I don't think there are, but
Okay.
I think it would be since, Carolyn and I don't know how to put this, are sort of the most knowledgeable and the people who interact most and on FEP, that we tend to have a lot of influence with the group.
Because I know in other coalitions, they have proxy, that they allow for proxy. So I wasn't sure if that was the case.
Yeah, I haven't looked at our bylaws for a while, Garrett, so I can't answer that right off the top of my head. I don't think we do. So, and I don't know what will happen if FERCog doesn't call a meeting at all, or, I don't, it's all just sort of unfolding now. All we really know is there's a deadline for this to happen the 17th of March, by the 17th of March.
So whether they call a meeting or not, the outcome is going to be pretty much the same, because the towns are not going to vote in favor of accepting, and whether they
Well,
vote or
let's-
not.
Let me be clear about this. The towns that normally attend the meeting on a regular basis are not going to vote. Now, if Phoebe is somehow talking to her 10 towns who never or rarely come to the meeting, a few of them do occasionally, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, or, anybody who's a town in Franklin County who can be a member of MAFCO. There are only about 6 towns that attend on any sort of regular basis. And because we haven't had regular meetings in this last year, that whole group has sort of fallen apart. They're just, some of us who have personal relationships and keep those relationships up, who are talking to each other. So
Well,
in
am I
my
right
view,
Go ahead.
okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, am I right that you don't need any action from the board?
Yes, other than just knowing that my intent would be to not vote to support, not vote in favor of that consensus support. Okay. Shall
Now
I
you've
finish the, shall I finish the show?
Yes, you've still got one more thing, right?
Oh, man, yes, I just got an email from Bob Blanchette, Cat, who's the treasurer of the Lake Wyola Association.
Yeah.
And apparently the association is beginning to talk about being ready to have their beaches tested, tested for the beaches for the summer. And apparently the company that has been doing that for them, Whitewater, can no longer do E. coli testing at the beaches. So he's been looking for other businesses who are willing to do it. And nobody's willing to collect samples. He's talked to both Quabbin Analytical and Howard Labs, and neither will come up and collect samples, which is what
You know, for years, Bill Elliott collected those samples.
I am well aware of that.
A lot of these
And-
companies will just, you pay them, they send you the test tubes, you collect the samples and send them back.
Trust me, I know. I've been president of the Lake Wyola Association. Nobody wants to do it. It's like every other group. They're all volunteers. Nobody's, up here on a regular basis anymore and wants to collect the sample and take it to Howard Labs or Quabbin Analytical. So,
Oh,
they
so
paid more money, and this other group actually came up to the beaches once a month and collected the sample and gave them the results and reported to us the results. And I think they're looking for that kind of service again, and I don't think they're going to get it, Wim.
Got it.
Yeah, Whitewater, they chose Whitewater because Whitewater does the testing at the state beach. And so they were here every week, and they were doing testing weekly at the association beaches too. So it was fairly easy for them to do. But if for some reason they can't do E. coli anymore, that's our indicator organism. And I would not want to let them change that, because it's a much better, we've been around and round and round about this. It's a much better organism for fresh water than Enterococci is. We have a little time. I'll bring it up at LWAC,
Okay, good.
which we'll be meeting. We meet on the third Saturday, so it's a couple weeks, it's 3 weeks from now.
Okay,
And,
do you want me to forward this to you? And
yes, that would be good, because otherwise I'll forget, and I'll forward it to Mark Rivers to get on the agenda for that meeting.
okay,
and
and I'll
may-
get a quick email back to Bob to let him know we're talking about it and that you're gonna bring it up at LWAC.
Yeah, I don't know about that, Mark and or Dave Green or somebody might be willing to do it, and maybe they could kind of take turns. I think that there might be people who are willing to do it. I know that Mark does some once a year deep water testing and has for a long time. But I think there might be some volunteers.
Oh, you do? Okay, that would be great news, because
Yeah.
they've both been involved in the association for a while. Neither one of them are neophytes when it comes to the Lake Wyola Association. So
Right.
neither Dave nor Mark.
Okay, well, I'll bring it up there, and we'll see what we can get people to do.
But the
Okay.
state park water testing is completely different.
Yes, it is. Over our vehement objections for years, when they first opened the state park, which is like more than 20 years ago now, I guess, they, in their wisdom, they decided that all state beaches, freshwater or saltwater, have to test for Enterococci, which is a good indicator organism for saltwater beaches. But that foolish consistency, the hobgoblin of little minds, made them decide that all freshwater beaches would have that too. Instead of having one standard for fresh and one standard for salt, they said it's going to be Enterococci everywhere.
Got it.
We fought, but we lost. So I don't know why they can't do E. coli anymore. I can't even,
Well,
I can't even
I'm not sure
guess.
that they can't. They're saying, he just
They
says
won't.
that Whitewater can no longer do our E. coli testing. It may be, I don't know why. I don't know why.
Hmm.
That's,
Well, yeah, it would be interesting to know, but it doesn't really matter. The point is they're not
No.
doing that.
right.
But Whitewater used to do the state beach, or does this?
It does the state beach,
He
but
doesn't,
not,
he
but
doesn't
not,
mention the state beach at all.
Or if they no longer are doing the state beach and therefore they decided to not.
well,
Yeah,
that's
could
an
be.
interesting thought. Maybe they're not doing the state beach, and maybe we can find out who is doing the state beach, and maybe they would take over
Mhm.
and do E. coli.
Is it maybe just as simple as that? As
That's a really good point, Garrett.
Yeah.
Noreen, can you ask Bob if he has any more information about that?
Yes.
I don't know who's now the park superintendent.
Yeah, I don't
Steve
either.
Hubbard retired. Last I saw, his farm was for sale.
Okay. I'll forward this to you, and I'll forward what I say back to Bob, Kat, and
Okay, and then I'll pick up the correspondence from there since
yeah.
you're not going to be here. We're making you earn this vacation you're getting.
No kidding.
I detected a moment though a bit ago, Noreen, where you said if you come back, and then you corrected yourself and said when I come back, and so
Yeah, well,
there.
yeah. I think I'm maybe wondering whether I'm coming back in one piece. I'm going hiking in New Zealand for 3 weeks, Wim, so I'm hoping I can still walk when I get back here.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
ambitious.
yeah, yeah.
You're gonna turn into a hobbit.
Maybe,
Mhm.
maybe that'll help me. Maybe I'll have some magical powers and I can get up those trails.
Good.
All right,
So
I think I'm finally done.
Wow, that was a one-woman show.
Mm,
Very good. Is there anything else we need to talk about?
no.
All right. Well, I suggest that we adjourn after wishing Noreen happy hiking and a
Yeah, have
safe
a
trip.
great trip.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Take lots of pictures.
And I think we should know Arlene is bird watching in Hawaii.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I can't wait until April when you guys are both back with all your stories and pictures.
yeah. All right, everybody. I'm
Okay.
exhausted.
Yeah, I should think so. Okay.
All right, good night.
Good
Good
night.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Bye.